Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar called the Four Essentials of Building a World-Class Team and Organization. My name is Pádraig Berry. Very happy to be here with you. I am the CEO of TTI Success Insights Ireland and of One Focus Business Consultants. And my co-panelist here is Brian Downs. Say hello, Brian.
Hello, everyone. As Pádraig said, my name is Brian Downs. I work with Pádraig, and I'm certified in all the TTI SII assessments, and I'm also a consultant in the area of performance and leadership development.
Very good.
Delighted to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Okay, anybody who's online, don't be afraid there to go into the chat and key in your name so I know who's listening to us. It's always nice to see the faces and know there's some real people out there. We can't see you, obviously, you can see us. I'm going to turn off the video, again, just to improve broadband speed and whatever, and we're going to focus on the slides. So, video off, and away we go. The series that this video series, or this webinar series that we're doing called the Four Essentials, we have, of course, as you know, gone through a number of them already. And the first one there, Brian, you might take us through it. This is one of your favorites.
Yeah, so the first webinar addressed the question, how do I find the right people? So the focus was on understanding the role you're trying to fill and giving yourself the best chance of picking the right person to fill it. We talked at length about the huge cost of bad hires to an organization and the necessity of getting it right the first time.
Yeah, that
obviously is very important.
Yeah, that's really true. In fact, we argued quite strongly, I think, that recruitment is actually an investment in the future, and it will actually impact the company, its profitability, its performance, for better or for worse, long after the initial hire is made. And I suppose we made the argument that the expense of hiring isn't really the true cost. You know, people talk about how expensive it is to hire, to find good people and go through the process, but it's not really the true cost. The real cost is revealed over time when the new employee either fades or flourishes in their role. And we also suggested that the way you actually get the right person is you benchmark the role, you match the person to the job, that this is really what it's all about. In the second webinar in the series, we asked the question, how do you keep the good people? And we looked at understanding how to build engagement and develop your people so as to meet your needs, not just now, but also going into the future.
Yeah, and we asked the question, how do you train your best people, your talent? And we suggested that the answer may be simple. They have to want to stay. I mean, it seems obvious, but it's important to say it. And we argue that people stay where they feel engaged. And engaged means people who are involved with, committed to, enthusiastic and passionate about the work and where they work. Yes. So engagement, we said, is not about you, it's about them. And we shared some research that has shown that the major reasons for leaving are poor relationship communications with their superiors, lack of a sense of room for growth and advancements, and job-related stress from a poor job person match.
Yeah, and actually, I've been reading some more research. We'll talk about it later on this. But to address those, the reasons people leave, we made a case again for what you need to do to not lose the people and that you really want to keep and to engage. Make sure you have everybody who is maybe less engaged than they might be to get them fully engaged. And we gave, you can see up there on the slide, we gave 5 strategies of which, or 5 areas one needs to focus on. And we're very simple. We say we have to build from the beginning. You have to hire right. You have to benchmark the role and match people to it. But equally, you have to look at the existing team and rebuild the existing team. So job match your existing team as though they were new hires. You know, again, benchmark the roles and match them against it and do the gap analysis and all of that. And 3, you have to have a succession plan. So you have to build personal and professional development plans for now and for future career progression. And 4, we said build competent communications, get everyone talking the same language. And 5, build congruence, everybody singing from the same hymn sheet. And number 5 there sort of leads us into what we're going to be talking about today's webinar.
So just before you start, Pádraig, don't forget in 2 weeks' time we're doing the 4th in the series.
Yes.
And no harm just reminding people. And in that, we're going to address the question, how do I manage the performance of my people? So here we're going to explore a range of tools to allow you to build accountability, peer reviews, war rooms, performance reviews, gap analysis, and development plans.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, thanks for that, Brian. Okay, let's get started. The webinar will take about 45 minutes, maybe 50, we'll see, with time for Q&A afterwards. Everybody's on mute, so if you want to communicate with us, please type in a message or question, and we'll answer them as best we can. Typically, we answer at the end, and we use them for our Q&A, but sometimes if there's something very relevant, we address it as we go along. So, to get started, as you've heard both Brian and I say many times, we've worked with hundreds of clients over the years. And we've tried many tools and processes, and we can, that some have worked and some haven't. But we've come to a few simple conclusions about how you can successfully build and maintain an effective organization. Now, we don't claim any magic bullets, just for the avoidance of doubt, but we do assert that there are solid tools and processes that can make a difference. And in this webinar series, we'll share some of the ones that we really believe in.
So in his book, Mastering the Rockefeller Habits, Vern Harnish talks about 4 decisions that management of growing companies must make. People, strategy, execution, and cash. Now, we've mentioned these before. The first 3 are our area of focus, and I believe that this is the order of their priority: people, strategy, and execution. I believe the old adage that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And Jim Collins in Good to Great says that first you get the right people on the bus, in the right seats, and the wrong people off the bus. Then you decide where the bus is going, i.e. you develop strategy. He argues that if you get people right, then the strategy and execution will follow. And if you don't, then you will spend your time micromanaging people who are going in different directions. Now, a good strategy on its own is not enough. Nothing happens until something happens. Ultimately, action is all that matters here.
Absolutely.
It's the only thing that creates an outcome. And John Ruskin said, what we think or what we know or what we believe is, in the end, of little consequence. The only consequence is what we do. And the only reason you plan is so that you can take action. Plans in themselves are useless unless they're used as agents for action. So execution is absolutely critical. So to manage the development of people, strategy, and execution, we use 2 models that we've come to trust. You'll be familiar from previous webinars with the model we use to get and keep the right people in the right seats. That's the DEEP system from TTI: discover, engage, advance, and perform.
Yeah, it's a great model. I think you and I are completely wedded to it. And
absolutely.
And here's the second one, that to make sure we're doing the right things, the one thing planning system from One Focus. And this model has a few components which will become clear as we go through the webinar. So we're spending quite a bit of time talking about this model as we go through. Just before I do, I want to just position this for you. Those 2 models, the DEEP model from TTI and the One Thing Planning model from One Focus, sort of underpin this OD model that we have here in front of us. This is our 1, 2, 3 reframing model. And it was built a certain way. So it was built first from left to right, and then from bottom up. So let's talk about left to right. First, focusing on the individual. So step 1 is get the individual right. Step 2 is focusing on the team. And the third is focusing on the business and around the organization. So it's in that order: individual, team, and business. And in each case, working from the bottom up: clarity, strategy, and action. So first we build clarity, then we develop strategy, and then finally we take action. And it's really important to understand that you need to follow this process because you can't really address one step without having addressed the one before. So for example, there's no point taking action unless you've got a clear strategy. Or there's no point talking about developing a team without looking at the individuals that make up the team, and so on. So again, this is just a model. As you know, we will be sharing this webinar. It's being recorded and it will be sent out to you. And you'll have the opportunity actually maybe to just freeze it and actually look at this model. It's a good model. It's a good way of thinking about how you develop an organization. Now, before we get into all of this and into the One Thing Planning tool and so on, I'd like to spend a few minutes discussing what we understand by leadership. And this is really what we're talking about today. We're talking about how do you lead your good people. And just the other day, I think it was on last Monday, I saw an article in the Irish Times by Frank Dillon, and he was looking at the subject of leadership. He reviewed a book called Learning Leadership: The 5 Fundamentals of Becoming an Exemplary Leader by Coos and Posner. And the premise of this book is that leaders are not born, but can be made.
Yeah. A very interesting article too. And the authors say that at its core, leadership is about the actions you take rather than the position you hold.
Hmm.
It's about the values that guide your decisions and about the visions you have for both yourself and others. And it also involves an aspiration to excel, aiming for something better than the status quo.
Yeah, and actually, numerous studies have shown that leadership has an impact on people's commitment, on their desire to stay or leave, on their willingness to contribute more discretionary effort, and on their inclination indeed to take personal initiative and responsibility. And bad leaders, of course, have a dampening effect of these things, while exemplary leaders have the opposite effect. I mean, a Gallup survey quoted in the book found that 50% of people who quit a job, they did it to get away from their managers. So 50% of the people in their careers who quit a job did it to get away from a bad leader. And you remember that in a previous webinar, we referenced this research ourselves. By contrast, another survey quoted showed the best leaders bring out more than 3 times the amount of talent, energy, and motivation from their people compared to their counterparts at the other end of the spectrum. And furthermore, the book presents, and you're going to like this, the book presents engagement percentages explained by leadership practices across countries, including Ireland. What I mean is that, what leadership practices or how much engagement was created by leadership practices in companies. And you may be surprised to know that Ireland scored 47%. So leadership practices had a very, very positive effect on engagement percentages, contrasting with, for example, 34% in the UK and 36% in the US. So leadership is a really, really important issue across a range of areas, and let's just discuss them. I have a view about leadership which is a little bit different, and Brian and I have had long conversations about this, and I think I'd like to just share a few of our thoughts on this. The first thing that I say about leadership is we'd like to suggest that leading people is about getting them excited. It's about helping them to create a vision for themselves that aligns with what you're trying to achieve. That they actually believe that where you're going and where they're going are the same place. It's getting them to associate with your why. So I'd like to make the case that leadership is emotional.
I think it's also about building a culture of transparency, responsibility, and accountability. And we mentioned the Rockefeller habits before. They're all about people, clarity, transparency, responsibility, accountability, congruence, alignment. They truly are they're a blueprint for building a world-class culture in organizations. So I suggest that leadership is about building a culture of accountability.
Okay.
Now, we've already referred to good to great. Get the right people on the bus in the right seats and the wrong people off the bus. Then decide where the bus is going. Jim Collins argues that if you get the people right, then the strategy and execution will follow. If you don't, then you'll spend your time micromanaging people who are going in different directions, and that is not leadership. So I believe that leadership is also about getting the right people in the right seats.
Okay, I like that. That's good. I mean, this one about clarity. In this famous essay, the Fox and the Hedgehog, Isaiah Berlin divided the world into hedgehogs and foxes. Foxes, he said, pursue many ends at the same time and see the world in all its complexity. They are scattered or diffused, moving on many levels. That's what he says. He says, never integrating their thinking into one overall concept or unifying vision. Hedgehogs, he says, on the other hand, simplify a complex world into a single organizing idea, a basic principle or concept that unifies and guides everything. So for them, it doesn't matter how complex the world, they reduce all challenges and dilemma to simple, almost simplistic hedgehog ideas. So to be clear here, they're not stupid. Hedgehogs aren't stupid, quite the contrary. They understand that the essence of profound insight is simplicity. Hedgehogs see what's essential and they ignore the rest. So, if I may, I suggest that leadership is about clarity, about seeing what's essential. And I'd like to just add to that, maybe just a step on from that. A friend and mentor of mine, Michael Ryan, once said to me the following email. He said, the safest, because I was actually out looking for advice from on the development of my business and things I was doing in my life, and we had a good conversation. When I came back to the office, the following email was waiting for me. And here's an extract from it. It said, the safest place to be when assailed by endless opportunities is with a clearly defined, immovable objective. The powers of the universe conspire to help the man who knows where he is going. Otherwise, they disperse in confusion, leading to an erosion of confidence. When you have an immovable objective, all doubt will go, all distractions will be swept aside, and all your wonderful energy will be channeled efficiently to a single aim. Now, that's a powerful message. I think you'll agree. And you can imagine the effect that had on me when I got back to my desk. So, I would argue that leadership, to me anyway, is also about setting clearly defined, immovable goals and objectives.
Yeah. And in the book, The One Thing, the author Gary Keller argues that if we can think big and go small, if we can identify our big goal, our empire state building, and line up the dominoes in the right size, order, etc., so that we know the one thing we can do today to knock down the first domino, then the moment makes sense. Our life makes sense, and we become unstoppable to an extent, essentially. We don't have to worry about the big dominoes, just the one in front of us right now. Life becomes simple. So again, leadership is about narrowing the focus to what matters, prioritizing.
Very good. I like that.
Yeah, but good people and a good strategy on its own is not enough. So nothing happens until something happens, as we said. Ultimately, action is all that matters, and it's the only thing that creates an outcome. So as John Ruskin said, what we think, or what we know, or what we believe is in the end of little consequence. The only consequence is what we do. Leadership, therefore, is about execution, about getting things done.
Yeah, I like these because, I mean, I know you and I have debated this at length and coming up with these. And one thing I like about them is they're not typical of what we think leadership is, are they?
Yeah.
We think about leadership being something quite different, somebody out there somehow or other waving the banner and I don't know what. But leadership is really a very practical thing, isn't it? And that's what we're saying here, and that's what they're saying in the book. Leadership is something that you can learn. It's about doing things. It's not necessarily about being something. It's about doing things. I mean, and here's another one I just like to add, which we all know that catching a rabbit is a difficult task to begin with, and it's certainly not going to be any easier. It's going to be a lot harder when a second rabbit or even more are included in the chase. And the word decide has the same Latin root as scissors or an incision. It's to cut. In this case, when you chase just one rabbit, you're selecting one of the options available to you. And cutting off, I suppose, the other options, the other routes. In short, you're committing your focus and your action to one plan, to one path, not two or more. So I would argue that no is a very, very important word in leadership. It's a very important word in strategy, that's for sure. So forget about keeping your options open. Singleness of purpose is one of the hallmarks of people who successfully build anything. And I want to say that again. Singleness of purpose is one of the hallmarks of people who successfully build anything. So I would argue that leadership is also about hard choices. So if we have those, our little list of 8 things up there, leadership is emotions about why, about building a culture of accountability, about getting the right people in the right seats, about seeing what's essential, about setting immovable goals and objectives, about narrowing the focus to what matters, about execution, getting things done, and about making hard choices. The question is, how do we use these ideas, or how can we take these ideas in a leadership model and help people where they can actually see what the organization excels at, what it stands for, where it's going, where they fit into the big picture, why the contribution is important, where to focus, etc. So they can buy into the organizational why. And we use development and implementation of the DEEP model and the One Thing planning model with your team addresses these issues and really helps people develop clarity, transparency, responsibility, accountability, congruence, alignment, all the things that Rockefeller talked about in his book, and Vern Harnish in his book on Rockefeller.
So at this stage, you're familiar with the DEEP model, and you've also seen the One Thing plan. Our experience has been that the development and implementation of this model with your team will answer most, if not all, of what you've just said leadership is about. So the key here is that everyone on the team participates, they get involved. This model can be cascaded down through an organization so that everyone knows why they're coming to work. Just say that again, they know why they're coming to work. That's a really big thing. They then know how they're contributing and what that means for them and their own goals and aspirations. There are 3 steps in the model, and they must be done in order, as each step is built on the one before. So let's start by looking at how the model works, at the principles underpinning it. So I'd like you to just indulge me for a minute. So just sit back, close your eyes, and get comfortable. Ready? Okay. If I could wave a magic wand and fix just one thing in your life or business, what would it be? Think about it. Personal issues, financial issues, relationships, work, career, whatever. Got it? Okay. Hold that thought. Now keeping your eyes closed. Think about what, if anything, you're doing about it today, this week, this month, this quarter, this year, and so on. Just think about that for a second. Okay, open your eyes. So who here had the same experience that I had the first time I did that? I mean, if your answer was that you're doing little or indeed nothing, then look, you're in good company. I think we've all been there at some point in our lives. And why is that? Why don't we do the things that matter? If they really are the one thing that we would like to improve, why are they not the number one focus in our lives right now?
It's a great question, isn't it?
You know?
I mean, and I have to say, quite honestly, when I was sitting there closing my eyes while you were doing that, Brian, and I actually have a plan, and I am actually doing things. But I remember, like you, I remember the first time I heard that, I realized that I wasn't doing anything about the things that really mattered. So let's look at this idea, or this lack of focus that an awful lot of us suffer from. And you see here a picture of Professor Stephen Morris in Toronto knocking down his dominoes. I strongly recommend you Google it and watch the video clip. I wish we could play it for you, but it doesn't really work very well in the webinars, playing the video clips. It's a great video clip, and it really makes the point better than we'll ever be able to make in this webinar. So Google him, Stephen Morris knocking down his dominoes, and you'll see the clip. If you look there at the photo, he starts with domino just a few millimeters high. I think it's like 4 or 5 millimeters high and a couple of millimeters thick. And the 13th domino that he has is 50 kg, 50 kilos, and it's over a meter high. And he said that if he had 29 dominoes in that line, the last one would be as high as the Empire State Building. Now, it's really interesting. And when he touches that, when he hits the first domino, one after another, each one knocks down the next one. Like one domino can knock down a domino 1.5 times the size. And of course, they put all the energy into those dominoes by lifting them up in the first place. But the point of the exercise really is that he doesn't have to worry about that 13th domino or the 29th domino, or indeed the 229th domino. You only have to worry about that little domino that's there in front of him. And as we said earlier, I mean, in the book, The One Thing by Gary Keller, he argues that we can think really, really big. If we can identify our big goal, our Empire State Building, if you wish, the last domino, and line up the dominoes back from the future in the right order, the right size, so that we know the one thing we have to do today, just the one thing today, to knock down the first domino, then the moment makes sense, our life makes sense, and we become unstoppable. We don't have to worry about the big dominoes. We don't have to worry about all the big challenges, all the big goals. All we got to do is say, what's the domino in front of us right now, and knock that down. Now, when you do that, life really becomes very, very simple. And if you think about this thing of the sequence of dominoes, it argues very strongly into that definition of success. I'm sure you'll all recall it. It's just the progressive realization of a predetermined, worthwhile personal goal. Is a thing of the present moment. So this approach works because extraordinary success is sequential over time. It's not simultaneous. It's about knocking down the dominoes. You don't become successful at some point in the future. You're either being successful or you're not. You're doing the things that are going to achieve the goals and objectives you set for you, or you're not, and therefore you're being successful or you're not. So going small is ignoring all the things you could do and focusing on the things you should do. It's recognizing that not all things matter equally and finding the things that matter more, or matter indeed most. It's realizing that extraordinary results are directly determined by how narrow you can make the focus. It's really important. The idea of thinking really big and going really, really small. Big ideas, big goals, big objectives, but narrowing the focus right down. And of course, when you narrow the focus down far enough, you end up staring at one thing. And if you see the slide there, be like a postage stamp and stick to one thing until you get there. The photo there, of course, is from the movie City Slickers. And it's considered to be one of the funniest movies of all time. And in one very memorable scene, Curly, the gritty cowboy there, and the city slicker Mitch, they leave the group to search for stray cattle. And Curly reins in his horse to stop, probably to light up another cigarette. And he turns to face Mitch. And Curly says, "Do you know what the secret of life is?" And Mitch says, "No, what?" And Curly says, "This," and he holds up one finger. And Mitch says, "Your finger?" And Curly says, "No, one thing, just one thing. You stick to that, and everything else don't mean beep." And Mitch says, "Gee, that's great. But what's the one thing?" And Curly says, "That's what you've got to find out." So corny, but good, I think. I mean, out of the mouths of babes and innocents and screenwriters comes profound wisdom. So let's look at the model. There are three building blocks in the One Thing plan based on three books. And the three books that we have here are Good to Great by Jim Collins, Starting with Why by Simon Sinek, and The One Thing by Gary Keller. And these relate to the three areas of the One Thing plan: the hedgehog, inside-out visioning, and strategic thrusts. Now, we argued there that leadership is about why, that it's emotional. It's about building a culture of accountability. It's about getting the right people in the right seats. It's about seeing what's essential. It's about setting goals and objectives, about narrowing the focus to what matters. Lining up the dominoes and getting down to that little thing. About execution, getting things done, and about hard choices, like choosing to do things and choosing not to do other things. We also said that it can be learned and supported through systems and processes. Now, in webinar 1 and 2, we looked at the DEEP model as a tool to build leadership through culture, through getting and keeping the right people, getting them in the right seats, and so on. So let's look at the One Thing plan now as a model and see if it can help. The first area is the hedgehog. And in the book Good to Great, there are many great concepts, some of which we discussed, such as the right people, the right seats, and so on. But for this exercise, we're concerned with just one, the hedgehog.
So, as we said, the essence of the hedgehog concept is to help organizations obtain piercing clarity about how to produce the best long-term results, and then exercising relentless discipline to say no thank you to opportunities that fail the hedgehog test. It's the intersection of passion, world-class talent potential, and an economic driver.
It's a lovely model, isn't it, actually?
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Of course, that was Jim Collins' model. We talked about it in a few minutes, his three circles. But the idea originally came from, as we said, this book or this story by Isaiah Berlin, The Hedgehog and the Fox. And as I said, the fox, as I said, is a cunning creature, able to devise a myriad of complex strategies for sneak attacks upon the hedgehog. And day in and day out, the fox circles around the hedgehog's den, waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. And of course, when we think about fox, we think of something sleek, fast, beautiful, fleet of foot, crafty, sly. I mean, the fox in any battle with the hedgehog certainly looks like the sure winner. The hedgehog, on the other hand, is a much dowdier creature, sort of a cross between a porcupine and an armadillo. And he wads along, going about his simple day. We can imagine him searching for lunch and taking care of little baby hedgehogs and his home and so on. But as Berlin's story goes, that the fox waits in cunning silence at the junction of a trail. And the hedgehog, minding his own business, wanders right into the path of the fox. "Aha, I have you now," thinks the fox. And he leaps out, bounding across the ground, lightning fast. The little hedgehog, sensing danger, looks up and thinks, "Here we go again. Will he ever learn?" And rolling up into a perfect little ball, the hedgehog becomes a sphere of sharp spikes, pointing outwards in all directions. The fox, bounding towards his prey, sees the hedgehog defense and calls off the attack. Retreating back to the forest, the fox begins to calculate yet another new line of attack. And each day, some version of this battle between the hedgehog and the fox takes place. And despite the greater cunning of the fox, the hedgehog always wins. So as we said earlier, the fox pursues many ends at the same time and sees the world in all its complexity. Scattered, diffused, moving on many levels, says Berlin, never integrating their thinking into one overall concept or one unifying vision. The hedgehog, he says, on the other hand, simplify a complex world into a single organizing idea, a basic principle or concept that unifies and guides everything. It doesn't matter how complex the world or situations are, a hedgehog would use all challenge dilemmas to simple hedgehog ideas. And anything that doesn't relate to the hedgehog idea for the hedgehog has no relevance. As I said, they understand that the essence of profound insight is simplicity. Hedgehogs see what's essential and ignore the rest.
And Jim Collins then in Good to Great took this idea and developed it into this three-circle model. And he says the essence of the hedgehog concept is to help an individual or organization obtain piercing clarity about how to produce the best long-term results and then exercise the relentless discipline to say, no, thank you.
Yeah.
To opportunities that fail the hedgehog test.
Yeah, it's a great model. And here it is actually. It's popped up here for, let's say, an individual as opposed to an organization. I came across this. I was doing a bit of Googling there, searching for nice models. I came across this model. I think it's really nice. So what he's saying here is three things. Talent, what you're good at. What are you good at? Bottom left of corner. Something you do naturally, better than anybody else. And of course, most of us don't recognize our talent. Why? Because it comes easily to us. And the second, passion. What is it you love to do? I mean, you could do it all day. I mean, it could be building a business. It could be a hobby. It doesn't have to be a particular discipline. And remember, if you're good at something, you tend to develop a passion for it. So some of you're typically very good at. You tend to start to get interested and passionate about it. And of course, the third circle is how you monetize the other two, making a career or whatever. And it's interesting when you look at the various combinations, what you love, what you're good at, happy but poor, what you love, what pays well, just a dream, what you're good at, what pays well, rich but bored. You really need all three for a real win. So the question is, what potential world-class ability do you have that you can apply in an area of passion or of enduring interest to create real value in the world? It's a great question. And, I really believe in the 10,000 hour idea. There's a story told about Sir Yehudi Menwin and the great violinist. And apparently some lady came up to him at the end of a concert and said, Sir Yehudi, that was incredible. I would give my life to be able to play the violin like that. And he reportedly responded, Madam, I did. So to be able to practice like Yehudi Menwin, you really have to love what you're doing and have talent. And he certainly built a valuable career around that passion and talent.
Yeah, and important to remember, the hedgehog is about being focused on a single idea where you can create real value, where talent, passion, and an economic driver come together.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, so it's a great model, the hedgehog, isn't it? You like it, Brian, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Just it's the simplicity of it. I believe in simplicity.
Yeah, it makes two of us. Okay, yeah. Let's see how simple the next part is. So we've talked about the business hedgehog, or indeed your personal hedgehog, that point of intersection of passion, talent, and an economic driver or a career, whatever. The second one here is visioning, inside-out visioning. And it's really talking about let me just break it up into three pieces. It's based on the book by Simon Sinek called Starting with Why. And he talks about, in Starting with Why, he talks about this notion of why, how, and what. And we define that as enduring purpose, your why, values, your how, and your mission or your big, hairy, audacious goal being your what. And the easiest way to explain this is to look at this golden circle model that Simon Sinek uses. And I'm going to use, if you bear with me, I'm going to use the same example that he uses because it's a good example, which is a personal or a computer company making, say, laptops, just for the sake of this example. So if we start from what and work our way in, you'd say something like this: we make great computers, or what? They're beautifully designed and simple to use, or how? Why don't you buy one? Yeah, that's fair enough. We make great computers, they're beautiful, but there's nothing really, really compelling about that. And he gives the example of Apple. And I'm a Mac man myself, so I agree with this. Apple, he argues, do it differently. They start with why, and it goes something like this. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in doing things differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed and simple to use. And we happen to make computers. Want to buy one? That clearly is a completely different approach. It's a completely different worldview. And that's why people pay a premium for Apple products. They believe what Apple believes. People buy why, not how or what. I mean, for example, Brian, if I told you that Apple were bringing out a car next month, what would you say?
Great. Can't wait to see it. It's going to be fantastic.
Why would you say that?
Because it's what Apple do.
Yeah,
It's going to look different, and it's going to be great to use.
yeah, it'll be awesome, won't it? It'll be the future. It'll be elegant. It'll be easy to use. Why do we believe that? Because we believe in Apple's why. If I told you that, I won't mention any names, but I told you another very well-known computer company was going to bring out a car next month, what would you say? Yeah, you say,
So,
Jesus, they can't even build a computer as good as Apple. Why the hell are they trying to build a car? We'd be afraid of it. So in our one thing plan model, we start with our hedgehog first, and then we move to our visioning. So in our hedgehog, we're looking at the why, how, and what. The why is your passion, the how is your talent, and the what is your career, or indeed your business model. In the case of our inside-out visioning, we do the same: why, how, and what. And our why is our enduring purpose, our how is our values, and our what is our big, hairy, audacious goal or our mission. And I want to give you a good example of this. NASA, it's a well-quoted example, but I like it a lot. NASA in the 1960s, their why was, their enduring purpose, was the exploration of space for the betterment of mankind. And that hasn't changed. Like, here we are 50, 60 years later, and it hasn't changed. The exploration of space for the betterment of mankind. But the mission that John F. Kennedy gave them in the 1960s was to put a man on the moon and bring him back safely within a decade. So, why, how, and what?
so the third area, then, the one thing plan model, is the strategic trusts. Now, this is based on the book The One Thing by Gary Keller. And strategic trusts are where you line up your dominoes, back from the future, until you're staring at your one thing.
Okay, yeah. It's a great book. And if you haven't read it, if you haven't read any of these books, by the way, guys, you really should read the three of them.
Yeah,
Good to
well
Great by
worth
Jim
it.
Collins. Start with Why by Simon Sinek, and The One Thing by Gary Keller. And they just have great ideas in them. So let's just accept that if you chase two rabbits, you're not going to catch either one. It's just really as simple as that. You have to narrow your focus. And you have to narrow your focus ideally down to one thing. And you do this by planning back from the future. By starting with your biggest domino, your Empire State Building, you remember we talked about it, your mission, your big, hairy, audacious goal, whatever you want to call it, and then lining your dominoes up backwards, working backwards, until you have just one small domino in front of you. And that becomes your focus.
Now, if your end domino is small, then your results are going to be small.
Yeah.
Right? It usually takes the same time and effort to build something small as something big. And if we look here, how big is your box? How big is your outcome? How big is your domino? And it's an important question. So now, look, we can talk about thinking big and all that. That's great, but that's not enough. You also have to be specific, right? And let's look at this through an example. So if we look here, and we look at the red quadrant in the circle. What can I do to increase? What can I do to increase sales? Is small and broad. Then we can say, well, what can I do to increase sales by 5% this year? It's still small, but it's specific. What can I do to double sales is big but broad. And then what can I do to double sales in 6 months? Now that's big and specific, and that's where you want to be.
Yeah, and remember, absolutely, that's what you want to be, big and specific. That's how you narrow the focus. Remember, like once you set the big, hairy, audacious goal, whatever this is, the dominoes you actually line up will be different. People don't always get this. And you have to do back from the future thinking, back from the future planning, because that big goal, big, hairy, audacious goal, defines what domino needs to come in front of that, in front of that, in front of that, until you end up staring at one small domino right here in front of you. And again, just if you look at their domino, the geometric progression, I mean, the 57th domino in a line, if the first one was just 2 inches tall, the 57 would be the distance to the moon. It's a geometric progression. So you don't have to worry about the end domino. You just have to worry about the one straight in front of your nose. So, I mean, just to summarize that little point, I mean, big picture and small focus.
Yeah. So, look, we keep asking Gary Keller's question then. What is the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else would be easier or even unnecessary?
That's it, yeah.
It's a really powerful question.
Yeah, it is. It is the question, isn't it? And remember, you guys, that what we're trying to do here is we're trying to show you a model where we're building from the ground up. So you start with purpose, your hedgehog, then your inside out visioning. Then you move on to priority, the strategic thrust that would lead you to. So in the visioning, you have your hedgehog, remember the how, the why, how, and what. So you have in the visioning the why, how, and what. And the what ends up being your big, hairy, audacious goal. And coming out of that big, hairy, audacious goal, you line up your dominoes. So you have your strategic thrust. You identify the areas you need to focus on, and you work back in the future from whatever is 10 years out to 36 months, to 12 months, 90 days, 30 days this week. And so you line them up. This leads to priority and to productivity. So you're actually doing the things that matter. You say, this is the thing right now in front of me, the single most important thing I do. This is the one thing I can do, such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or even unnecessary. And what I love about this process is just work our way back here to the whole thing about leadership and leading your people. This is a model that's completely transparent. I want you to imagine that as an A0 up on the wall with all the stuff on it in yellow stickies. It aligns actions with shared values. So if you're down there in the bottom right-hand quadrant in this week or this month taking actions, that links right up, right through the model of this year, 36 months, big high strategic thrust, into the mission, the big heritage goal, up to the values and enduring purpose, back up the hedgehog where you add maximum value in the world. Everything is aligned. So people can be inspired and inspire some to get behind this vision. It fosters collaboration without a shadow of a doubt, and it recognizes contributions because people are either delivering or they're not delivering on the plan. So by helping people see what's essential, by helping them, say, if you wish, set and agree goals and objectives, by narrowing their focus down, you're leading people and help them take action to get things done.
And it's worth repeating, John Ruskin, what he said. What we think or what we know or what we believe is, in the end, of little consequence. The only consequence is what we do. And this helps you get stuff done.
Absolutely. And it's a model that allows you. Leadership is not an idea, in my mind. Leadership about things that you do. There are ways of doing things. So, I mean, in the 5 leadership practices, they talk about modeling the way, inspiring a shared vision, challenging the status quo, fostering collaboration, and recognizing contributions. And we argue that leadership is about many things, but it can be learned and supported through practices and processes. And we suggest that the DEEP model, develop, engage, advance, and perform, is a tool to build leadership through, for example, building a culture, keeping the right people, getting the right seats, and so on. And that the one thing plan model helps by modeling the way, aligning actions with shared values, inspiring a shared vision, fostering collaboration, as we said, recognizing contributions, seeing what's essential, setting agreed goals and objectives, again, narrowing the focus, getting things done, making the hard choices, saying no to things. Really and truly, these models allow you to make leadership a real living, breathing thing in an organization that everybody can be involved in, everybody can engage in, and that creates real value in the organization. So I hope you enjoyed that, guys. That's sort of it, I think you can see how the DEEP and one thing plan models can really help build a culture of leadership in your organization or even at a personal level and with your team, and can lead to top performance. Now, before we do our Q&A, as usual, we have a special offer for you. Using the link that we're going to post in the chat box now in a moment, I encourage you to sign up and avail of this free offer. These are always, we think, very valuable, worthwhile things.
Yeah.
The first 10 people to sign up to register will get a free personal behaviors and driving force assessment with a self-debriefing guide, and a one-on-one debriefing session with Brian or me. They will also get a workbook, The Fox and the Hedgehog, which is all about how you develop your own personal hedgehog. And finally, they'll get a worksheet, the One Thing Plan worksheet with instructions. And this is a tool that we use with all our clients to give them piercing clarity and focus to grow the business day by day. So sign up, guys, while we're doing the Q&A ideally, and hopefully we will talk to you again soon. So to start our Q&A, so any questions coming in there? So let's see what I have here in front of me. Okay, I have a question here asking me how do you use this with a large organization? Okay, so how do you use this with a large organization? That's pretty straightforward. You can actually, you might take this one, Brian, because you and I are actually working with a client at the moment where we're actually cascading this down to the organization.
Yeah, I mean, Essentially, it starts at the top. It starts with the leadership, and as an organization, starting to understand what they want, where they're going, what their mission is, what their BHAG is. But in order to do that, understanding their own hedgehog, and that typically starts with the leadership team. And once they've sorted out their vision, then that can start to cascade down, and you get to ask, all the teams within the organization what they think, and give them an opinion, or allow them an opinion, and give them a piece of ownership of the overall strategy. And it's a really powerful tool. It's working really, really well in an organization with nearly 1,000 people.
Yeah, actually, it's interesting, man. I remember when what really struck me was when I saw the One Thing plan completed for the group, for the organization as a whole. And then I walked down a couple of levels. So I went down to a business unit, and I saw that the business unit had the exact same plan, so the exact same hedgehog, the exact same visioning exercise. And underneath the mission for the group, they'd written their mission, what they had to accomplish, to contribute to the mission for the group, the big heritage, and then their own strategic thrusts, and they cascaded those down back from the future thinking, right down to things to do this week, and people had taken responsibility for particular lines of the plan. And then I went further down at the organization, down to a department, and they're up on the wall, behind the door into one of these departments, had they their One Thing plan up on the wall, and they taken the one for the exact same one for the group, right down to the level of the big, hairy, audacious goal for the group, the big, hairy, audacious goal for the business unit, and then they'd written their own one for their department, how they were going to contribute to the business units one, and they had their own strategic thrusts and so on done. So that was really some amazing to see that, because everybody in the operation down there working in that particular department could see what they were doing in that department, what they were doing as individuals, how that cascaded right back up, right to the group, and supporting the group objective, what the group was trying to do. And then what happened, what really amazed me was to see them having their monthly meeting, standing up around the One Thing plan, updating, modifying, saying what did we learn, what worked, what didn't work, changing the plan. And then the leader of that team going up to the business unit meeting the following day and contributing in the exact same way. And then the business unit manager the following day going to the group meeting and contributing the exact same way. So the idea is the strategy cascaded down and then cascaded back up and back down. It was really quite remarkable to see it. And this whole idea of language and building a culture where everybody was talking the exact same language. It's the simplest tool in the world. It actually beggars belief that something so simple can work so well.
But I'm going back to something you mentioned earlier on, people know why they're coming to work. They know what their contribution is. And these are really, really powerful things when you look at the organization as a whole. And so not only do you have the clarity of where we're going, you now have the right people and the people who are engaged in it. And everybody's driving it forward. And that's really, really powerful.
Yeah, that's very good. Just before I take another question there, I see the link is there in the chat box. You can see the link to the special offer. So grab it there and click away. Okay, any other questions? You have a question there coming in, Brian? Oh yeah, I've one here. I've got one here in front of me. How does a hedgehog and the One Thing work together with the TTI tools? Good question, like really good question. Okay, if you stop for a moment, just think. Go back to our question of leadership. What does it mean to lead? So we're talking about first about people, then strategy, then execution. The deep model addresses the people issue. So we talk about identifying the right talent, getting them on board, developing career progression, succession planning, building teams, and the deep model, the TTI tool deep model, is all about developing the people. The next step then must be strategy and execution. And the strategy model is the One Thing plan. So the One Thing plan is all about thinking strategically. So once you're the right people in the right seats, you've got to do the right things. And the right things are about identifying the hedgehog, where the organization creates maximum value, turning that into a visioning exercise, our enduring purpose, our values, how we will interact with the world, and our big, hairy, audacious goal, our mission, and then identifying the strategic thrusts that will allow that mission to become a reality, converted to reality, and cascading back from the future, working backwards, one domino at a time, right back on just staring at things to do this week and this month. So that's how the two of them integrate. We use them as one system. We use the two models as one system. When we say to people that we focus on people, strategy, and execution, these are the models we use. And in the upcoming webinar in 2 weeks' time, we'll talk about the whole thing of the war rooms, the strategy walls, the Kanbans, and all these different tools that we use that cascade out just in terms of implementation of development plans and gap analysis for individuals. So how you actually manage the performance. Once you have this system in place, how you actually manage performance, which is really, really interesting.
It's probably worth just reiterating as well that one builds on the other here. You know, it is a sequence, and the sequence is there for a reason. It does work, but one builds on the other, and that's a very important piece of this.
I have another one here. Pori, you talked last session about using the sticky notes on a wall to build the one thing plan. Do you like to facilitate each session of the plan by brainstorming, or do you like to use specific methods to identify different areas? Hedgehog, inside out vision. Okay. Yeah, good question. Thanks, Mary. That's a good question. Okay. I'm a great believer in breaking things up in the reductionist method. I like a holistic view of things, but I like reductionist systems. So, for example, if we were doing an exercise, we would take something like, take the hedgehog, for example, the first thing, and we would take the whole area of passion, why, and we would have a series of brainstorming exercises, exactly what the question you asked. We'd have a series of brainstorming exercises, Mary, that we would use to actually get loads of ideas up on the wall. And then once they're up on the wall, we will consolidate them back down and try and end up with saying what the area of passion. Ditto the area of talent, where we add maximum, where we have the potential to be world class, and so on. So yeah, we have different tools. There might be, for example, for each element of the plan there, for step one of the hedgehog, there might be half a dozen tools you could use. Step two, there could be half a dozen tools. You choose the ones that you want. But it is all about engagement. Sorry, Brian.
I have a preference for the design thinking method and following through a fairly structured but flexible brainstorming. So I really like the design thinking methodology.
Yeah, well, we probably have in our toolkit, we probably have half a dozen tools we can use with each one of these boxes, and we decide which ones we're going to use, and we lead the brainstorming through a process. But the idea of the brainstorming is that you're coming up, there is an outcome, that you're brainstorming to a purpose, to actually come up with something useful at the end. So good question. Thank you for that one. How does the hedgehog and the one thing work together? I have that one. How long does implementing the whole process take? Obviously, this depends on organizational size, but just to get an idea for small and medium business. Good question. Okay, let's take it in pieces. The first piece is the one thing plan. To implement that is very straightforward. And I think typically you would do that over a period of a few weeks. You have a few interventions over a period of a few weeks, half-day sessions or 4-hour sessions with people. Then they all go away, they do some work, you come back together, go away, do some work. Because you need to give people time to actually process the information and absorb it. The other side of it, the DEAP, is an ongoing process. What you do is you build it into the system. Typically, we would work with the client, we would upskill the client in terms of certify or train them, and we would help them and support them as they implement the system on a rolling basis. So they start with their new hires, and then they benchmark the initial roles for their new hires, and then slowly but surely they bring it out and cascade it out into their organization. And that's sort of an ongoing process forever. In terms of the big investment and the big challenge that people typically have is time. That's really the challenge. And I suppose for small to medium enterprise, to do one thing plan is probably a few days of their time over a few weeks. Implementing deep as a system is just an ongoing thing that you just implement it and you continue using it as a process. There's no real time commitment to it in that sense. Each time you do a job, obviously you're giving a half a day, let's say, to benchmarking a job. But it's benchmark for an extended period of time, and you're just using it as a system thereafter. Any questions there that you have, Brian?
Excuse me, I'm a bit croaky, I apologise. So just one question here. So how do leaders typically take to this model? Is it? I think what it means here is this an easy concept for leaders to get, and do they see an immediate benefit to it in terms of it being explained to them? And I think with many leaders, you're going to have a degree of skepticism at first, but it really doesn't take that long for somebody who's leading an organization to see the benefit of actually developing clarity, developing a plan, and developing focus on what's important.
Well, Brian, I just make a point there. My experience has been that once somebody starts to use this, there's no going back. Once they actually go down the process of using deep or using the one thing plan, and they develop that clarity, be it around benchmarking a role and matching somebody to it, or developing strategy for organization, they don't go back. There is no,
No.
and they get engaged very, very quickly.
Yes, absolutely, and really because the tools are simple, it makes it easy to work with, and it makes it easy to cascade that down throughout an organization, so that everybody gets it.
Yeah,
everybody can see the simplicity.
Yeah, they're simple to understand. This is very simple stuff. I mean, as I said before, like we've used many, many tools over the years, and we found things that actually work, as opposed to, writing a thesis. These are simple tools, but they work, and they're profound tools, and they change and transform cultures. Now, so we're going to have to wrap it here, guys. Our time is up. I have a few other questions there. Sorry for the people who popped them in there. I really can't get to them. I thank you very, very much, everybody, for participating. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed giving it. And we look forward to seeing you at the next webinar. And don't forget to grab your special offer. Thanks so much. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.